My name is Axel Montagne. So I'm from France. I joined USC, University of Southern California, in 2013 as a postdoc. So I became right now I'm an associate professor of research at USC and the associate director also of the imaging core facility. So to give you a few words of what I'm doing is I'm working on trying to find uh, how the biology behind Alzheimer's disease. So how people become demented, basically. And most importantly, what I'm doing is I'm using imaging. So I'm using, as people know, magnetic resonance imaging, MRI imaging. I'm using also all kind of different techniques, but I'm developing new sequences with MRI to look at things that we couldn't see before. And to give you few examples, we are very interested in the brain vasculature. So we know there is tons of tiny blood vessels in the brain that we call capillaries. And those small vessels, people don't realize that if you put all those small vessels back to back, it's about 600 miles for one brain. So it's the distance between Los Angeles and San Francisco. So there is tons of blood vessels in the brain. And the reason why I'm interested in those blood vessels is there is recent findings, including my findings and different groups worldwide, that found that those tiny vessels, they become leaky with normal aging. And if people start to get, as we know, like vascular risk factors, so people have diabetes or hypercholesterolemia, hypertension, all those things will basically accelerate the process. So those tiny vessels will be leaky over the years, and this is detrimental for your brain health. And all the molecules that are in your blood should stay in your blood, but when they reach your brain, they become neurotoxic. You lose neurons, and depending on where you lose neurons, you may lose memory. So that's kind of the hypothesis of how Alzheimer's disease starts, at least using my research. And I'm using, and just to finish on my part, I'm working on animal models where we can repeat the disease with genetic risk factors, and we can and also I'm working on human patients where we scan them, we look at blood biomarkers, and we try to understand these vessels that are leaky and how we can fix them. That's the most important part of my research.
It was amazing to talk to Axel about this research because my work in Axel's research, what he's looking at is this connectivity, right? And how all of these different aspects are connected, and how lack of connectivity um, influences the way the brain responds over time. And my work has always been about connection, um, and whether that's connection, mostly it's connection in community. So how we relate to each other in community, how we develop our sort of families of choice, how we relate, in the sort of relationship of it takes a village, but also looking at the nature of micro and macro, how we see, how we look at things, um, like Charles and Ray Eames' Powers of 10, which we discussed, he and I. Um, and so when I looked, one of the things that he did in order for us to communicate about the research that he does is he showed me a bunch of images, some of the imagery that he did, and how those, I looked at those images and I was able to translate those images and think about them. And one of the materials I have used in the past is um, the electrical wire, the 12 gauge copper conduit that runs um, through all of our homes. It's the electrical wire that um, traverses the entire earth, that connects us to each other, right? And is the electrical impulse that goes from our homes to power stations to everywhere. And so I took that electrical wire, which is also like the electrical stimulus that is in our brain that connects our neural networks and the electrical impulses that go to and from. And I recreated some of the imagery that he showed in that electrical wire, and created a suspended hanging piece that modeled some of his work, which was really fun to do, and felt sort of electric at the time.
Yes, so when Rebecca sent me the first pictures of what she was doing, and I think I got some of the pictures at the beginning of the wiring, I would say, and I was in, like, right away I said, okay, these are exactly what I'm doing with my imaging techniques, because I don't know if we could later to show my imaging next to your piece, but it's exactly the connection between all the neurons in the brain that are basically on her piece with different colors. And in my imagery, all the colors like basically means a different directions. It could be anterior, posterior, left, right, and things like that. So she used all these different colors and different wiring, which makes me think that, yeah, this is exactly a neuronal network. Or you could think also, me, as I'm very interested in the vasculature, it could also be the vascular network that is very complicated in the brain. So I think, yes, she was very successful, and it was a pleasure to work with her, and I hope we can do other things like that, because I really enjoyed not only the science part and the discussion, but also the human side of it was very interesting.
I also really enjoyed that. I mean, one of the things that was really great is that in our discussions, I mean, I am also a patient at USC, and someone who suffers from an inflammatory chronic disease. And Axel and I have discussed some of the things that I have concerns about. And he has, you know, we've discussed like other people I can talk to and things I should be concerned about, and, you know, things that we can discuss. And we've discussed some philosophical questions and, you know, ways that we can look at the relationship between art and science, and how, you know, these are both philosophical, you know, questions. They're both ways of pursuing a creative constraint, right? I mean, they're ways of, we have an idea, and an idea we want to pursue, and they are similar. You know, we want to communicate a query, and he's looking at one. We're both looking at ways that we want to try to solve societal problems, and, you know, he wants to solve physical ones, I want to solve sort of metaphysical ones, and I think together, I think that this project is a really great one, in which we can come together. And so, yeah, I think it was great, and I think we have definitely initiated a friendship, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.